Yo, what is going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome back to another episode of the Crash Course Metal Show. We are going to be doing today a four squared part number three, or number three, if you will. So this episode here, we got four choices to go head to head in the hair metal space, and I got a comment on the one of the previous four squared videos from Marty, and he wanted to do these four albums. So I thought, you know what? This looks like a pretty good lineup here. I think I know my answer right off the bat, but I think it would still be a good exercise to listen to them again and try to rank them 1 through 4. So these are the albums that we are going to be talking about today. That is going to be White Lion's Pride from 87, Winger's debut album from 87 as well. Look What the Cat Dragged In from Poisons, their debut album from 86, and then XYZ Hungary from 1991.
Hey, Justin Adams from Ocean here, and you guys are watching the one and only Crash Course Metal Show.
So the first one that I'm going to jump in of the four guys is going to be White Lion's Pride. Now, this is their second album in their catalog, and I will say that it did do pretty well. Obviously, riding on the back of When the Children Cry, Wait are the two big singles off of this album. It did go double platinum, and like I said, a lot of that did have to do with the ballad When the Children Cry. It did reach number 11 in the top 200 Billboard charts. So with this album, I like this album. I like all four of these albums, okay? But this is an album that I just don't really visit that much, guys. Now, when we're talking about the track listings here, obviously the single Wait, I do enjoy that. I always like that song. But When the Children Cry, the ballad, I am not a fan of that song. I I like the messaging in that, but I will say it's kind of boring. Like it's just not a ballad that I go out of my way to listen to. I and usually when it comes on the iPod, it gets skipped. So it's just it is what it is. And that ends the album there. Um, another thing too, Vito Bratta is a very good technical guitar player, but I will say Vito never really did anything for me. As far as like, oh man, I gotta go listen to White Lion for Vito, or I gotta go listen to this White Lion song because of the solo or the riffage. Nothing really, nothing taking nothing away from Vito because he is a very good, great guitar player. But just something about White Lion's music I just don't gravitate to usually. I would even say that Pride isn't even my favorite White Lion album, although most of these tracks are very good. Most of these tracks are on the iPod. I can listen to this whole album through, but I mean, I think Main Attraction might be my favorite, just off the top of my head. And obviously, you can tell like this is their second album, and they're starting to get a little bit more commercial with this album. And their debut album is a little bit heavier, a little bit faster. You can certainly tell that they're gravitating towards mainstream, in my opinion. But some of the other tracks here, "Don't Give Up" is a cool feel good song, motivational song, if you will. But nothing amazing at the same time. "Sweet Little Lovin'" is one of my favorites on here. "Lady of the Valley" is another good one, the end side A. Uh, you know, Also too, "All You Need Is Rock" is fine. It has a little bit of a it kind of has the same feel to me as "All Join Our Hands," that type of deal. Like because "All Join Our Hands" has a little bit of a chant song feel to it, a little bit of an opening acoustic wise. But yeah, I mean, as far as like talent goes, White Lion has all the talent in the world. But it's just I don't visit like this album. Like I said, I like most of this album. I can listen to this whole album. But do I visit it more than once or twice a year in a year? I can't say that I do. And that goes for even certainly like Big Game and Main Attraction, which I probably do. Like I said, prefer Main Attraction. But man, I don't know. I This album here, I just don't visit that much, guys. But if you guys do want to check out a couple songs on here, check out "Lady of the Valley," one of my favorites. "Sweet Little Lovin's" fun, and and Wait is a good single. But Hungry is really good though too. A very good opening track, has a little bit of an edge to it. So, I mean, like I said, there's good songs on here, but it's just not one that I visit. And, like I listened to it earlier today in preparation for this video. And I was like, well, I probably won't need to hear this for at least another 6 months, So that is kind of where I'm at on White Lion Pride. Uh, it is what it is. Great talent, but it's just not one that I just visit that much. And the guitar solos don't keep me. The riff doesn't keep me coming back. That type of deal. Mike Tramp's pretty good singer as well, and I always forget that James Lamenzo, the bass player, he went on to be in Megadeth for a couple albums, like in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, and that always surprised me, or like I always forget about that. And when I end up listening to Megadeth, I'm like, oh fuck, that's right, I forgot about that. Like, but that's just cool that you get someone from the hair metal side, glam metal side, and then jumping over to the thrash, and he can do both. Which these musicians can do both, and a lot of people talk shit on the hair metal scene because of the talent, which I totally disagree on. Because some of the best talent is in the hair metal scene, but there's talent in all subgenres, no doubt about that. All right, so let us go to one of our other ones here. Which one should we do next here? Let me get the Poison Look What the Cat Dragged in out of the way here first. So this is obviously debut for Poison. Ended up selling like 3 million copies plus, triple platinum, and it didn't start out very well, because I think the first single actually was "Cry Tough," which I actually do enjoy that single. Out of all the singles on this album, there's four of them: "Talk Dirty to Me," "I Want Action," "Cry Tough," and "I Won't Forget You," the ballad. I tend to visit "Cry Tough." I don't really visit any of these the singles, but I do enjoy "Cry Tough." Like the messaging in it, what they're trying, like what they had to do and what you have to do to make it big or make your dreams come true. I'm always a sucker for those feel good stories like that. So I have a little bit of a bond to that song, and always did, even when I was a kid. Like I said, Poison, Cinderella, Britney Fox were the bands out of the womb, so Poison is a part of the family. But that doesn't mean that this album has aged well for me. That doesn't mean that I can't talk bad about this album, because, like I said, the singles are just kind of weak. Even though it did go all the way up to number 3 in the top 200 Billboard charts, so it did well once it got rolling. Because obviously, the second single was "Talk Dirty to Me," and that is where the traction started to pick up. And then "I Want Action." But I mean, "Talk Dirty to Me," I don't need to hear that song again. Overplayed. Poison has way better songs in their catalog than that single. And also, "I Won't Forget About You." I do not like that ballad. I'm a ballad guy, and I just can't really get into it. I liked it when I was younger. I never loved it, but I liked it when I could listen to it. But now when it comes on like the ballad playlist, I'm kind of like, let's skip this here. Listen, because Poison has a pretty good ballad play catalog, and they have plenty of ballads. And this is certainly one on the bottom of the list, in my opinion. Uh, but no, out of the singles though, like I said, "Cry Tough" and "I Want Action." I can listen to "I Want Action," but it is very tongue in cheek and stuff. But same with a lot of this album. Very you could tell Poison was maturing as time went on, especially once you get to Native Tongue and Flesh and Blood. You certainly get the mature Poison, and I do prefer Native Tongue when it comes to Poison's catalog. But the deep track, so for me, is where I'm at on this album, because, like I said, I don't listen to the singles anymore. But when I do play this album, it is songs like "Play Dirty," "Look What the Cat Dragged In," the title track. The other one, "Number One Bad Boy." Even "Let Me Go to the Show" is the final song on the album. Really good. I mean, it's fun, obviously, because he's like fighting with his mom and dad, basically let him go to the show, and I don't know, it's just kind of cool because we were all there at one point. And also, too, "Number One Bad Boy," really cool. I dig that groove in that song. You know, CC still does his guitar, still has a guitar tone. Although it's not perfected like what you would hear and Open Up and Say Ah, the next album. It's still here though. Like you can tell CC does some cool stuff with his riffs. Soloing is good as well. Just good tone too. I mean, like I said, it's not where it needs to be, or it's not the perfected tone like from Open Up and Say Ah. But this is an album I just don't visit that much anymore, guys. Like I said, I do visit the deep tracks more than anything. But it's just not where I'm at with Poison. Open Up and Say Ah, Native Tongue, um, the one from 2000, Crack a Smile. I prefer those three over anything off this album, and even Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood is kind of weak as well, surprisingly, in my opinion. That is another one that even the deep cuts aren't like that strong on that album, and that kind of disappoints me a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at here with Look What the Cat Dragged In. So, guys, the first two albums that we're talking about here are on the weaker side in my top 100 albums in hair metal. You know, that type of deal. Still, I mean, if someone says they like these two albums, I'm all for it. I'm here for it. You know, like I said, I own these albums and I listen to them, you know, all throughout my life, and nothing horrible to say about them. Because if someone says, "Oh man, I love these records," I'm like, "Me too." But there's plenty more that I found throughout my years that I just totally prefer even more. So that's not saying talking shit necessarily, but I do have to make decisions here on this show as far as got to place them in order 1 through 4. So, you know, you're going to have to talk bad about some things, going to have to talk really good about some things. And that is where we're going to be going to here, guys. So the third album is what we're going to be talking about here. Let us go to Winger. Let's get that out of the way as well. So these next two, I will be talking better praise, if you will, in this list of 4. So obviously Kip Winger, Red Beach. Yeah, great guitar tone, great guitar soloing, like just a great guitar player. And then obviously the songwriting of Kip Winger. Winger got so much shit, unnecessary shit, obviously from Beavis and Butthead and stuff like that. But man, I don't like. This is a really good album. It stays just as good over time for me. Because I had this ever since I was in high school, and I probably even like it even more than when I was in high school, to be honest with you. Beau Hill does produce this album, and I don't know, because they're like me and Michael Kelly Smith and a couple other people were talking about Beau Hill, like all the albums that he did. Like he did Rat albums, he did the first Rocks Gang album, he does obviously Winger here, and he puts a very glossy feel, like it's very overproduced feel. Kind of takes the edge off of a lot of things, in my opinion. From what I hear from Beau Hill and the albums that he did, and I don't know if I would say, because like the first Rocks Gang album, I think would have done a little bit better, would have been a lot edgier if it wasn't for Beau Hill, in my opinion. Uh, but still, that's still a great album though, whether Beau Hill or not. But with Winger though, it's kind of interesting because like this is a very well produced album. Not very edgy in most spots, and I think Winger does sound good like that. But I would be interested to really see if like Winger had a little bit of a producer that gave him a little bit of an edge, let the rawness feel. I mean, that would be kind of weird to hear, just coming from Winger. But I mean, we hear it on Pool, Winger's third album. So there is a world where that sounds really good coming from Winger instead of the really well, I wouldn't say necessarily overproduced, but just really well produced albums of Winger. So, but yeah, guys, this album is great. Now, I would say this album, in my opinion, is not overrated, but it's not underrated either, if that makes sense. I think it's pretty much in the right spot. Now, obviously, everyone knows 17. That single was big as hell. Same with Headed for a Heartbreak, which is a ballad on this, one of 2 ballads. Madeline was the first single, and then you had Hungry as well as a single. So like I said, this did go platinum. I kind of feel like this or this did go more than just single platinum, just by how much everyone does talk about it. It's not like an unknown or forgotten album by any means, especially with 17 on it. Uh, it did hit the top 20 in the top 200 Billboard charts. So obviously it did well. And I will say at the same time, when I was younger, I didn't really care for the ballad "Headed for a Heartbreak," but as time goes on, I do appreciate it more. So that has gotten better for me. But like I said, the singles are good. You can't complain with that. And 17, yes, I know people complain about, oh yeah, well, he's like 60 plus now singing 17, or it's just cheesy 17. Same thing with like Cherry Pie. Ah, who cares? The guy was like 25, especially like Janie, and a lot of these guys were like 25, less than 30 years old, talking about 18-year-olds and stuff. I mean, that's what everyone talks about, even today. Like, get over it, okay? Yes, you might be 60 now, listen to this, and be like, this ain't more my speed anymore. But okay, but at the time, and it's just a great song to begin with. So let's all take a deep breath and enjoy the greatness that are Red Beach's solos in this damn song, okay? All right. Now, with that out of the way, Without the Night is a ballad on here that I totally overlooked as well when I was younger. But man, like the last couple years, man, I think that is an underrated ballad. That is one of Winger's, I don't know. Miles Away is one of the best ballads of all time, in my opinion. Not just a Winger ballad. But I will say, Without the Night is one of my favorite Winger ballads as well. I can't talk enough about that in the recent years. They do a cover of Purple Haze on here too, Jimi Hendrix's Purple Haze, and I always like that cover. Now I'm not the biggest cover guy, but I think Winger certainly mixes it up and sounds way different than say Jimi Hendrix. But no, you can tell it's still Purple Haze, no doubt. But I just like what Kip did on this song, and I prefer Winger's Purple Haze over Jimi Hendrix's. Like, obviously, Jimi Hendrix is way overplayed, and like I don't ever need to hear like his version again, no matter how great it is. But man, when I first got this in high school, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" They did a really good Purple Haze cover. I was like, "Fuck yeah!" And ever since then, I'm like, "Give me the Winger version." Time to Surrender is really good. And oh my god, like I said, Hungry and Time to Surrender, I think are really underrated songs on here. Oh god, Hungry, it's a pretty good video as well. But man, I think Hungry is a underrated song on this as well. Time to Surrender is right there, pretty much with it. Ah, man, like there are maybe like one or two songs that I kind of can't really remember how they go, but that doesn't necessarily knock it because like when I listen to this album, I'm like, this is just good. It still holds up today, even with the very low sound on the album, like of the original. And I think it still holds up well. I mean, Kip Winger is one of the greatest songwriters there are, and even in classical music and shit. Like, he can't do no wrong. And even the new album is really good. Seven, I believe. And I just can't talk enough about Winger. I mean, I'll defend Winger anytime, any day. And the first three albums certainly prove that, in my opinion. Great stuff, great stuff. So yes, the debut album here, guys, from Winger is really good. Certainly one of maybe a top 50 for me, I would say, off the top of my head. So that is a big thumbs up for me as far as Winger, the debut album. So we are on to our final one here, our final uh, recommendation or choice, and that is going to be XYZ's 1991 Hungry.
Hell yes.
Now, this is coming off the XYZ debut album, which is really good. Don Dokken produced that album, and oh god, this album here did not do any certifications. Had I think two videos, "Face Down in the Gutter," which is absolutely amazing single, and then also the ballad "When I Find Love." And I think that "When I Find Love" is better than any of the ballads on the debut album. I prefer this album way more than I do the debut, and the debut is great. XYZ is like one of my favorite bands. Certainly a top five, well, maybe not top five, top 10 band all in general in any genre. So certainly Terry has a great voice. Mark's a great guitar player. I love his solos, love his riffs all throughout the catalog in XYZ, not just this album, but this is where I think he really excels and does his like shit, like soloing and everything. Now, there's a lot of that on the debut as well, but I think this is just perfection here uh, compared to the first. You even have 12 tracks on this album. And I'm not a big fan of like anything over like 11, 12 tracks, but my God, like all these are really, really good. And I can talk about these tracks like all day. Uh, so let us jump into a little bit of the tracks here. What you need to know: Face Down the Gutter, first track, heavy, in your face, great stuff. Don't Say No. Fire and Water is a nice mid-tempo feel to it. Fire and Water and like Off to the Sun remind me of like mid-tempo to slower power metal, even in certain spots, like feel songs, When a Night Comes Down, Don't Say No. Feels good. Oh my gosh. Like this like first goddamn side A, side one. Absolutely great. And then you got side two, that rivals it. That is like just as good almost. And you got Shake Down the Walls to lead it off. When I Find Love, the ballad, which is probably one of their better ballads, certainly compared to the first one, because I do really like Deny, which is on their like 2001-ish uh, album, Letter to God. That's really good. But like When I Find Love is like your classic style ballad and very good. H Boogie, one of my favorites on here. The Sun Also Rises in Hell, which is a very interesting one. That's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like thrashy, but it has speed to it and it has heaviness to it. Like, look the fuck out on this song. Roll of the Dice, one of my favorite hair metal songs of all time, I would say. Certainly, I would argue a top 25 hair metal song. Oh my, I cannot talk enough about the sound just because like the solos are so great in this. Terry sounds amazing. A top 10 vocalist in all of hair metal. Like he's just wailing it out as well. Same with Mark on the guitar. You got Paul and Pat on bass and drums in the pocket, like all the way through doing their own shit. Like it's great. And then you got Whiskey on a Heartache to, send you off. Track number 12. Not not my favorite off of this album, but still strong to be like, God damn, I just went through that 12 track album and I want to hear some more. Like this album is one of my favorites of all time, and certainly super happy that I was able to get it physically. Shout out to Jason for finding it for us here. And oh god, I was so happy when he found this because like I had the debut. I actually have 2 copies of the debut, which, like I said, I love that album as well. But this is where it's at. Hungry, XYZ. I cannot talk enough praise on this album at all. Whenever someone who isn't aware of XYZ or only knows the debut, I certainly make it known that this album needs to be heard, especially if you like XYZ or just like great hair metal. And look at that damn album cover. Like, yeah, people say it's cheesy and shit. I think that's cool as hell. Like, then again, I like Boys in Heat. I like the cartoony feels, even like Outlaw Blood. If anyone's familiar with that album, great, great shit there. All right. So, guys, I can certainly talk more about Hungry, but for time purposes, I can move on and not bore you anymore with Hungry. So, let us rank these 4, 3, 2, 1. So, let us do number 4 here. This is tough.
6 hours later.
I think I'm going to go with White Lion Pride at 4 just because, like I said, I do like pretty much the whole album. I can listen to the whole album through, but I don't visit it that much. Now, with coming in at number 3, the reason why I put Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In, at number 3 is because I visit the deep tracks a lot more than anything off of Pride. Like I said, I don't really visit Poison's debut that much throughout the year. Same thing with White Lion Pride, but I visit those deep tracks, like Play Dirty, Number One Bad Boy. I visit those songs a lot more than anything off Pride. So I think that's why I got to give Look What the Cat Dragged In the number 3 spot over Pride, putting them at number 4. So number 2, let us do Winger, and at number 2, the debut. I can't talk enough good about this debut album, but you are going up against XYZ's Hungry, which is one of my favorite of all time. Because I even texted back or commented back to Marty and said, this is a very good four squared, but I know what the number one is right away without even really thinking about it. And that is going to be XYZ's Hungry. I cannot talk this album up enough. This was an easy one for me. Now, the 4-3-2 spots were, open, but the number one spot was always going to be XYZ's Hungry. And I had to listen to it again this week just because even though I was 100% sure, I had to be 110% sure. And I certainly was, in my opinion. It's always a blessing to hear this album. One of my favorites. So, guys, that is going to wrap it up. Let me know what you guys think of these four albums, okay?
Talk to me.
Always interested. And if you guys have any more like four squared albums from hair metal, from thrash metal, from power metal, let me know. Or just any metal albums, really. You can put any metal albums, four of them together. Let me know, and I'll do my best to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so guys, thank you so much for watching the Crash Course Metal Show. I'm Trevor Crash Knight, and let us build this community here, because obviously the live scene isn't what it used to be. Just the metal community in general feels like it's on life support, all genres or all subgenres. And that's what we like to do here. We like to bring, especially when we go live, when we do our live shows Friday nights, we just like to hang out, talk music, no matter what subgenre that is. We just want to keep this stuff alive. We want to help promote the unknown and forgotten stuff from the past, from the present, and from the future as well. So, guys, until next time, thank you so much for watching. And if you guys really enjoyed this video, check this one out right here.
Yeah, I wrote that. It's called I Want to Rock Your Body. And then in parentheses it says to the break of dawn.